I'm sure none of you have ever gone through the pain of having your closest loved ones forget your birthday, but that's exactly what happened to me. And when I finally realized who had kept my wife from remembering, it was truly heartbreaking. But I won't get ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning. Most mornings, I was up before dawn, savoring the rare quiet before the house stirred to life. It was my time to think, to remind myself why I had chosen this life, a life that brought both happiness and responsibility. Stephanie and I met in college. She was all fire and determination, the kind of woman who made you believe you could take on anything with her by your side. We married young, and before we knew it, Olivia and Madeline were part of our world. They became our everything, bright, full of life, and, at times, exhausting in that way only teenagers can be. Over the years, we found our rhythm. Stephanie kept things running, making sure birthdays were celebrated, dentist appointments weren't forgotten, and life stayed organized. I found joy in the smaller things. Fixing things around the house, manning the grill on Sundays, and being the steady, reliable presence our daughters could always count on. Father's Day was one of the few times when the focus shifted to me. Stephanie and the girls always made sure I felt appreciated, even if it was just a simple breakfast, a heartfelt card, and a few uninterrupted hours together. That was all I needed. Grand gestures never mattered. What we had was enough. Mother's Day was when I went all out, cooking breakfast, setting up a midday spread of wine and cheese, and ending the day with steak and Cabernet. When the girls were younger, they'd help in the kitchen, but as teenagers, they mostly left it to me. Father's Day, though, was Stephanie's turn. She always took over breakfast duty, something I appreciated. That morning, I waited for her to wake up, knowing she'd start cooking as soon as she did. She kissed me, wished me a happy Father's Day, and got right to it. Later, we had lunch at a cafe. The following year, while going over our schedule, she pointed out that my birthday and Father's Day would land on the same day. I laughed, joking that I hoped I wouldn't get shortchanged on gifts. She smiled and promised me something extra special. The way she said it stuck with me. It made me wonder if she meant more than just a combined celebration. But as that Father's Day approached, something changed. She started staying late at work more often, snapping at the girls and me over small things. She dressed differently too, wearing makeup more often, accessorizing with scarves, and choosing lower-cut tops for work, things she hadn't done before. Then, on the Friday before my birthday, she stepped out of the bedroom wearing a short skirt, stockings, and high heels. She casually mentioned she was going out with coworkers. That threw me off. Fridays were usually our night together. I asked if I had forgotten any plans. She brushed it off, saying it was a last-minute thing. She came home just before midnight. Earlier, her hair had been styled with care, but now it was pulled back in a simple ponytail. She walked past me without a word and went straight upstairs. Moments later, I heard the shower running. She didn't even come back down to say goodnight. That's when I knew something was wrong. The next morning, I left for work early. No goodbye kiss for the first time in our marriage. I tried to ignore it, pushing forward with my day, but the unease didn't leave me. At the store, Brooke, the morning barista, was already waiting near the entrance. She was a striking redhead with sharp blue eyes. I was happily married, but I wasn't blind. "Hey, Daniel," she greeted with a warm smile. "Morning, Brooke," I replied. She must have noticed something was off because she tilted her head slightly. "You okay?" I sighed. "Just a lot on my mind." She nodded in understanding and handed me a coffee, which I accepted gratefully. As she prepped for the morning rush, I made my rounds, checking in with my team. My managers were capable, but I liked staying connected with the staff. My last stop was the coffee shop. Brooke already had my usual black coffee waiting. "Here you go, boss," she said with a grin, handing me the cup. "Thanks, Brooke," I replied, dropping a $2 tip into the jar. She waved it off. "You don't have to do that." I smirked. "Can't risk a complaint," I joked. She laughed, brushing off my comment, and I went back to work, trying to focus. But the unease didn't leave me. When I got home, the house was full of energy. Stephanie and the girls were rushing around, getting ready for a concert, something they had planned weeks ago, though I had completely forgotten. Olivia gave me a quick kiss goodbye, but Stephanie didn't even glance my way before heading out the door. That uneasy feeling I'd been trying to ignore only grew stronger. Later that evening, I tried to shake my suspicions, but they wouldn't leave me alone. I checked her email. Nothing. Her phone was locked, so I couldn't see her messages or call logs. I even looked in the laundry hamper, but she had already done the wash. No clues. No answers. Just the same gnawing feeling. I put on a movie, hoping to distract myself, but my mind wouldn't settle. Even when I finally climbed into bed, my thoughts kept circling the same questions. The next morning, my birthday and Father's Day, I stuck to my usual routine. Coffee, toast, and a few quiet minutes outside. Normally, that time of day brought me a sense of peace. Not today. Something was off. When I stepped back inside to refill my coffee, I was surprised to see Stephanie and the girls already up, packing a cooler. "We're going to the beach," Olivia said casually. "Oh," I replied, caught off guard. I went upstairs to get dressed, assuming I was coming along. But before I even finished, I heard Madeline's voice from downstairs. "Bye, Daddy." Then the door slammed. I walked to the window just in time to see them pulling out of the driveway. And that's when it hit me. Stephanie had forgotten my birthday. As I stood there, my phone rang. It was my mom. "Happy birthday and Father's Day, Daniel," she said warmly. "Thanks, Mom," I replied, forcing a smile. "Stephanie must have something special planned for you today," she said. "No," I admitted. "She took the girls to the beach." There was a pause. "That's unusual. She's been acting different lately," I said, finally voicing what I hadn't wanted to admit. Mom's voice softened. "I'm sure she has something planned for later. Love you, sweetheart." "Love you too, Mom." I wanted to believe her, but doubt had already settled in. Not long after, my phone rang again. Isabella, my assistant. "Daniel, we've got a situation. Brooke got shoved down the stairs by a customer. Might have broken her arm." "Jesus. Is she okay?" "She's at the hospital for x-rays." "Damn. Do you need me to come in?" "No, we've got it covered. Just didn't want you blindsided later. Thanks for letting me know." After I hung up, I stood there, feeling strangely disconnected. It was my birthday, Father's Day, and I had nowhere to be. So, I decided to take myself out for breakfast. At first, IHOP seemed like a good idea, but the second I walked in, I regretted it. The place was packed with families, fathers surrounded by kids, laughter filling the space. I stood there for only a few seconds before turning around and walking right back out. I ended up at McDonald's, sitting alone at a park bench with a breakfast sandwich. My mind drifted to the lake where I used to take Olivia and Madeline when they were little. They had loved it then. By 1 p.m., I still hadn't heard from Stephanie. No call, no text, nothing. It was obvious now. There were no plans. Frustrated, I drove to the cafe, ordered lunch, and posted a picture online. As expected, the likes and Father's Day wishes rolled in. Then, I saw a comment from my mother-in-law. She assumed I was at the beach with them. So Stephanie had been posting pictures from their trip, but she hadn't even thought to message me? I finished my meal, suddenly feeling like I needed something stronger than coffee. I headed to a sports bar, but it was packed with dads and kids, exactly the scene I wanted to avoid. Instead, I slipped into the cigar lounge next door. It was quiet, dimly lit, filled with the rich scent of tobacco and leather. I treated myself to a $60 cigar. Why not? "Happy birthday to me," I muttered, letting out a bitter laugh as I lit it. A couple of guys invited me to join their card game. "I'm Daniel," I introduced myself. "I'm David, and this is my brother, Michael," one of them said, dealing me in. He handed me a beer, and I settled into my seat. After a few hands, Michael glanced at me. "No kids today? Or is the ex with someone new?" The question caught me off guard. "My wife and daughters are at the beach," I said. "Didn't even remember today." David exhaled. "That's rough." "My boys are in the military," Michael added. "Daughters in California. My grandson just turned 2. I'm visiting next week." "Sounds nice," I replied, forcing a smile. The conversation moved on, but it eventually circled back. "You think she forgot?" Michael asked. "Or is she avoiding you?" I hesitated, then admitted what had been gnawing at me. The late nights, the shift in her attitude, the way she had started dressing differently. David and Michael exchanged a look. "She's cheating," David said bluntly. The words hit like a gut punch. I wanted to dismiss them, tell them they were wrong, but I couldn't. David leaned forward. "Look, I've been there. The late nights, the dressing up, it's a pattern. My wife did the same thing." He sighed. "I divorced her. Biggest mistake I ever made." I frowned. "How is divorcing a cheater a mistake?" David sighed. "I spent years paying alimony. I was broke. And the truth is, I missed her every damn day. Eventually, we got back together, and we're happy now." I shook my head. "If she's cheating, I could never forgive that." David studied me for a moment, then gave me a knowing look. You don't get second chances at love when you're our age, Daniel, he said. If you still love her, you'll find a way. I sat there, David's words still ringing in my ears. Thanks, David, I muttered as I stood up, still trying to process everything. I'll think about it, I said, though deep down, I couldn't imagine ever forgiving Stephanie. I shook their hands and walked away. When I checked my phone, more photos from Stephanie and the girls at the beach filled my feed. My heart sank. Forget it, I told myself. Stop letting this ruin your day. But it wasn't just about my birthday or Father's Day. It was the growing suspicion that for weeks now, she had been seeing someone else. I needed a distraction, so I decided to treat myself to dinner at my favorite steakhouse. I figured there'd be a wait, but I didn't care. After a shower and throwing on a jacket, I headed out. At the bar, I ordered a glass of champagne. The older man sitting next to me glanced at my drink, then ordered a martini. The bartender refilled my glass, and the man turned to me. Celebrating alone? Or am I taking someone's place? No, I'm alone, I said. He nodded. My wife's busy helping my daughter. She broke her arm today. You don't expect your grown kids to still get hurt. I chuckled. Looks like I'll be flying solo for a while. My wife's caught up with other things. Just then, a little girl ran up to him, shouting, "Grandpa." She jumped into his lap, hugging him tight. Before I could dwell on it, I heard someone call my name. Daniel. I turned to see Brooke standing there with a woman who looked a lot like her. Her mother, I assumed. How's your arm, Brooke? I asked, trying to hide my discomfort. It's fine, she said with a small smile. The painkillers are helping, but setting the bone hurt like hell. Brooke introduced me to her parents, Robert and Linda, and her daughter, Mia. Where's your wife, Daniel? Brooke asked, not thinking much of the question. I'm not sure, I admitted. She took the girls to the beach this morning. I haven't heard from them since. Brooke frowned. Really? On Father's Day? That's pretty rough, Linda added, looking genuinely surprised. She blew you off today? I shrugged, not wanting to get into it. Forget about her, Linda said. You're with us now. I don't think I can, I admitted. Come on, don't let it get to you, Robert said with a grin. It's your day too. But this is your family dinner, I protested. I don't want to crash your celebration. Nonsense, he said. This is a day for dads. Robert winked at me as their buzzer went off. Pay up, Daniel, and meet us at the table. I slipped a $20 bill onto the counter and followed them. Sorry if my parents are a bit much, Brooke said as we sat down. No worries, I replied. It's better than being alone. During dinner, we shared stories about our kids. Mia giggled at funny stories from Brooke's childhood, and for the first time that day, I felt a little lighter. Then my phone buzzed. It was Stephanie. I let it ring, flipping my phone face down on the table. Your wife? Linda asked, noticing. Yeah, I said quietly. It's more than you think, isn't it? Brooke asked gently. I hesitated before answering. I think so, I admitted, barely above a whisper. But I don't have proof. Linda exchanged a look with Robert. Everyone makes mistakes, she said. Maybe you can forgive her. Brooke shot her a sharp look, but I didn't respond. Thanks for inviting me, I said, shaking Robert's hand. When I got home, the girls ran up to me, guilt written all over their faces. Dad, I'm so sorry, Olivia said. We didn't know today was your birthday. Madeline's eyes welled up. You must hate us. No, sweetheart, I said, pulling them into a hug. I love you. Mom suggested the beach, and we didn't think. Olivia trailed off, looking ashamed. It's fine, I said, keeping my voice even. Don't worry about it. I didn't mention the anger simmering inside me. That was between Stephanie and me. Let's go inside. After changing into something comfortable, I came downstairs to find Stephanie sitting alone, crying. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't respond. I walked past her, grabbed a beer, and stepped out onto the deck, staring out at nothing, trying to focus on anything but her tears. A few moments later, I heard the sliding door open. Daniel, What's his name? I interrupted, still not looking at her. Silence. Daniel, please. What's his name? I repeated, my voice sharper this time. Her silence told me everything. A wave of anger surged through me. That was it. I knew I was going to need a divorce lawyer. Nearly 2 decades of marriage gone. I had been such a fool. As my mind raced, the questions wouldn't stop. How long had this been going on? Was he the first? Did I know him? I spent the rest of the night researching divorce laws, scrolling through legal websites, absorbing every bit of information I could. By the time I finally drifted to sleep, it was on the couch. That was how I spent my birthday. The next morning, I woke up early. Stephanie was still in bed, curled around her pillow, looking peaceful. She looked beautiful, even though she wasn't mine anymore. I grabbed what I needed, took a quick shower, and slipped out of the room without waking her. As I walked down the hall, I found Olivia waiting for me, her face tight with worry. "How bad is it, Dad?" she asked hesitantly. I let out a heavy sigh. "As bad as it gets." "Can you forgive her?" she pressed. "It's just one day, right?" I shook my head. "She didn't just forget my birthday or Father's Day, Olivia." My voice cracked. "She cheated on me." Olivia's eyes widened, her voice trembling. "No, Daddy. She wouldn't do that." "She did," I said firmly. "And I won't forgive it. She barely spoke to me all weekend. She was avoiding me." Olivia hesitated. When Grandma asked why Mom didn't call Grandpa on Father's Day, she screamed, "No." So loud we thought something was wrong. I frowned. "What?" "Dad, he's fine," she assured me quickly. But Mom was sobbing. She just kept saying she loved you over and over. Madeline even wanted to call an ambulance for her. I sighed, rubbing a hand over my face. "Olivia, you can't cheat on someone and still claim to love them. That's not love. It's selfish." My voice hardened. She chose him over me. Tears streamed down her face as she threw her arms around me. "Please don't divorce her." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "I have to go to work," I said gently. "We'll talk later." At work, I kept my composure. The only unusual thing was dealing with Brooke's accident paperwork. She was getting compensated for her time off, and I hoped she wasn't too stressed. She came by to sign the forms, struggling with her injured arm. "Can't write with my left hand," she muttered. "I'll fill it out," I said, taking the pen. As I wrote, she hesitated before asking, "How's everything at home?" I sighed. "Not good." She didn't deny it when I confronted her. Brooke winced. "Damn, Daniel. I'm sorry." She hesitated, then added, "I know you don't want to hear this, but I get it. My ex cheated on me while I was pregnant," she admitted. "I kicked him out before my daughter was even born. After work, I expected Stephanie to be at home, but she wasn't. I knew exactly where she was. Driving to the grocery store where she worked, I spotted her car in the parking lot, but she wasn't inside. She was in her car, with a younger man. The moment she saw me, panic flashed across her face. "No," she yelled, jumping out of the car. I didn't stop. I didn't argue. If she wanted him, she could have him. I went home, packed a bag, and decided to stay at a hotel until I found a place of my own. Before I could leave, Olivia and Madeline came running, tears streaming down their faces. "Dad, please," Madeline sobbed. "Don't leave." "Sorry, girls," I said, my voice hollow. "Your mom was about to cheat on me." Olivia shook her head. "Dad, this has to be a mistake." I clenched my jaw. "I saw her," I said, my voice raw. "With a guy. Alone. In her car. Why else would she be with him like that?" "Please, Daddy," Madeline whispered. "Don't break up our family." I hugged them both tightly. "Your mom did this, not me. But I love you both. I'll stay in touch every day." I kissed their cheeks and pulled away, leaving them crying in the hallway. As I backed out of the driveway, I saw Stephanie's car speeding toward me. She nearly ran me off the road. I shook my head and kept driving. The next week was a nightmare. Stephanie called nonstop for 3 days straight. She must have taken time off work because she had nothing better to do than harass me. Every voicemail was desperate, but I deleted them all. Then came the pressure. My mother, my mother-in-law, my daughters, even Stephanie's sister, all begged me to talk to her. "It's not as bad as you think," they kept saying. So I asked the only question that mattered. Did she cheat? Silence. They all knew, and not one of them would admit it. That was the moment I stopped answering their calls altogether. I made it clear to the girls. I would always talk to them, but not about their mother. By the end of the week, I met with a lawyer. I wanted a 50-50 split of the house. Stephanie could stay until the girls moved out, and then we'd sell it. My lawyer said I could push for more, but I didn't care. Stephanie fought back, insisting she had only slept with one man, the Friday before my birthday. And just like that, her family turned on me. "You're the bad guy for not letting her explain," they said, as if there was anything she could say to make it right. Then my mother called. "You're weak for not fighting for your marriage," she snapped. Stephanie's mother wasn't any better. "You broke your vows too." My daughters pleaded with me. "Please, Dad, don't do this. The divorce will scar us forever." I hadn't done anything wrong. And yet, somehow, I was the one being blamed. At that point, I made my final decision. I asked for paternity tests, telling my daughters it was a court order. Not long after, Stephanie sent me a letter admitting to the affair, downplaying it as a one-time mistake with some 21-year-old who meant nothing. She even claimed she had told the guy never to contact her again, like that was supposed to make things better. None of it mattered. She had cheated. That was enough. And the best part? Her letter was all the proof I needed. I no longer had to prove infidelity in court. Despite her resistance, the judge finalized the divorce within 60 days. Yet somehow, I became the villain. My family stopped speaking to me, but I stood my ground. I called my daughters every day, left voicemails. They never picked up. On Sundays, I started running into Brooke and Mia at a local cafe. The first time was a coincidence. We chatted while Mia played on my iPad, and for a little while, I forgot about everything else. The next Sunday, I saw them again. Brooke smirked. "Are you stalking me, Daniel?" I laughed. "Nah, just appreciating a quiet morning." It wasn't intentional, but we kept meeting there. Brooke was easy company, and Mia's energy was a welcome distraction. The day my divorce was finalized, I went back to the house where I had spent almost 2 decades with Stephanie. She answered the door, her face blotchy from crying. Without a word, she stepped aside, letting me in. "Are the girls home?" I asked. "They're at the school play," she murmured. She let out a shaky breath. "I knew you'd try to get me back." I laughed sharply. "You broke my heart, Stephanie." "Daniel, it was just one mistake," she pleaded. "Why can't you forgive me? Didn't you love me like you used to?" Tears streamed down her face, but I felt nothing. "Did you love me when you flirted with him?" I asked coldly. "Did you love me when you ignored me on my birthday?" She sobbed. "I never wanted this." I scoffed. "And you think I did?" "I never wanted a wife who cheated on me." Her breath hitched, but I didn't let her speak. "Not only did you break my heart," I continued, my voice sharp, "but you turned my own family against me. I will never forgive you for that." She stiffened. "You're overreacting." My temper flared. "If you don't get my family to apologize to me," I warned, "I'll tell every man you date what you did. I'll make sure no one ever trusts you again." "You can't blame me for this," she said weakly. I scoffed. "Oh, really? Did I cheat?" "You've taught our daughters that cheating is fine," I said, my voice tight. "They'll grow up thinking it's acceptable, and I'll be the villain." I stepped back. "Well, I'm done. I won't be a fool while you chase another man's attention." She reached for my hand. I yanked it away. "Rot in hell," I spat before walking out. She was still crying when I left. A few weeks later, Brooke stopped by my office. "Got a minute, Daniel?" she asked casually. "Sure," I said, curious. She hesitated, then smirked. "Does the company have any rules about dating employees?" I caught on immediately. "I was hoping to ask you out," I admitted, unable to hide my smile. "We do have a strict maltreatment policy," I added playfully. "If things don't work out, it's on us, not the company." "Good," she said, sliding a folded note across my desk. "Dinner tomorrow night. Mia's coming too." I grinned, already looking forward to it. After she left, I recorded a voicemail for my daughters, letting them know I missed them. I gave them a small update on my life, knowing it might stir things up. 15 minutes later, Stephanie texted me. "I can't believe you're already dating. You're a fool." I laughed, shaking my head. She really thought I was supposed to mourn our marriage. At 41, I was still young enough to start over. Brooke was in her early 30s. Maybe she'd want more kids someday. Maybe not. Either way, she was looking for something real, not just a rebound. And I was ready to move forward. That night, I got ready for dinner with Brooke. I felt good. I was fit, successful, and starting a new chapter. Dating again felt unfamiliar, almost nerve-wracking. Back then, it had all come so easily. But now? Now, I worried about how to be with someone new. With a bottle of wine, a bouquet of flowers, and a stuffed bear for Mia, I headed to Brooke's house. No harm in winning over her daughter, too. When Brooke opened the door, I took a moment to take her in. Her fiery red curls framed her face perfectly, and her sundress skimmed just above her knees, showing off long legs. She was barefoot, her toenails painted bright pink. She smirked. "Do I pass the test?" "Absolutely," I said without hesitation. She laughed, taking the flowers and wine from me. "Mia's watching TV. Go say hi." And just like that, I stepped into my new life. "I'm sure she'll love the bear," Brooke said with a smile as she walked toward the kitchen. I knelt beside Mia. "Hey there, sweetie. I brought you a bear." She hesitated for just a moment before her face lit up. Snatching the bear from my hands, she ran off to show her mom. Something about that moment tugged at me. It reminded me of when my own daughters were that age. And for the first time in a long time, I let myself imagine the possibility of happiness again. Brooke must have noticed my distant expression. "Are you okay?" she asked gently. I forced a smile. "Just thinking about my girls when they were little." Her face softened. "Is it really that bad?" I let out a heavy sigh. "They won't talk to me. Stephanie's turned them against me, but I'm not giving up. I leave them messages every day." Brooke reached across the table and gave my hand a light squeeze. "I'm really sorry, Daniel," she said quietly. I nodded. "I know they listened to my messages. I told them about our dinner plans, and Stephanie texted me, calling me an a-hole for moving on so fast." Brooke bit her lip, looking both amused and unsure. "Too fast," she teased. I smirked. "Apparently." She tilted her head. "Maybe, but I'd be happy to figure it out with you." She squeezed my hand, her smile warm. "Dinner's ready. Hope you like pasta with meat sauce." "Sounds perfect," I said, grinning. "I also brought garlic bread, so get ready for some serious couch time later." Mia giggled, her little face lighting up. Brooke caught my slight hesitation and smirked. "Daniel," she said, amused, "we're both adults here. I like you, and I'm not shy about it." Her confidence was refreshing. "You're a great guy, and I think this is worth giving a shot." "You think I'm hot stuff, huh?" I asked playfully, still adjusting to how easy this felt. "Yep," she said with a mischievous glint. "You've been causing quite a stir at the store. You're good-looking, in shape, smart, and we all know how you feel about loyalty." I sat there, feeling lighter than I had in a long time. "So," she added with a wink, "I'm getting in line early." I squeezed her hand. "I like you too." Mia, realizing she wasn't the center of attention anymore, piped up. "Skitty's my favorite." I chuckled. "I love Skitty too. The fattier, the better." Spotting the Parmesan, I grabbed it. "You must have really stinky cheese." Brooke laughed. "It's not stinky. It's parm. "Stinky cheese," I teased, sniffing it dramatically. "Wow, this is really bad." Mia giggled as I handed her the jar. She took a sniff, shrugged, then dumped a ridiculous amount onto her pasta. Dinner was easy and lighthearted. We talked about Mia's preschool, her favorite cartoons, and her little circle of friends. She had endless stories, and I found myself enjoying every second. At some point, I noticed Brooke watching me and Mia interact, a thoughtful expression on her face. As the evening wore on, she started clearing the table. "I'll help," I offered. "No need," she said with a laugh. "She hasn't even told you about her favorite TV shows yet." Later, after getting Mia settled for the night, Brooke joined me on the couch with a glass of wine. She sighed contentedly, propping her feet up. "I love being a mom," she said softly. "But sometimes, this right here is the best part of my day." Without thinking, I wrapped an arm around her. She leaned into me, warm and comfortable. "It's harder with two," I said, thinking of my own experience. "Definitely," she agreed with a knowing smile. After a quiet moment, I asked, "Do you think my girls will ever come around?" Brooke took a deep breath. "I hope so. It's still new for them. You're doing your best, but I know it'll take time." She turned to me and kissed my cheek. "You're a great father, Daniel. Don't give up on them." Setting her glass down, her expression became serious. "Daniel, I've already told you how I feel. I don't play games. I want us to keep seeing each other, exclusively." She held my gaze. "I have Mia to think about. She needs a steady father figure, and I need a partner, someone solid." I opened my mouth to respond, but she held up a hand. "I know what you're going to say. Usually, this kind of talk scares men off, but I don't think you're that kind of man. I'm giving you the chance to back out. If you're looking to date around, I'm not your girl." Her voice was steady, but I could see the flicker of hesitation in her eyes. "But if you're serious," she continued, "I'm here." I blinked, caught off guard. Wow, was that a rehearsed speech? Her expression faltered for just a second, like she thought I might reject her. "Brooke," I said quickly, "we've known each other for years. The last few weeks have been great. I've always been a family guy." I hesitated, then admitted, "Honestly, I don't even know how to be single. The idea of dating again scares the hell out of me." Her lips curved into a smile. "You're a good man, Daniel. Smart, funny, and you make the best spaghetti I've ever had." She laughed, giving me a playful shove. "I'd like to be your girlfriend," she continued. "Let's make something real out of this. For both of us, and for Mia." That night, we didn't sleep together. As tempting as it was, I wanted to take things slow. Brooke had laid her feelings on the line, and I respected that. A week later, Brooke and I stood outside my office. She smiled up at me. Ready for our next date? I grinned. Always. When I pulled up to her house that evening, she greeted me with a kiss. Are we still on for dinner tonight? She asked warmly. Definitely, I replied. I'm making something special. Before she could respond, a voice cut through the air. Is that the tramp? I turned, startled. Stephanie. Excuse me, I said, disbelief creeping into my voice. Brooke remained calm, standing her ground. Stephanie, what do you want? Stephanie folded her arms. I've been trying to call you. Did you block my number? Brooke's tone sharpened. Yes, after your 30 messages calling me an a-hole for living my life. What do you want? Stephanie sighed, composing herself. I need to talk about the girls and their college plans. They can go wherever they want, I said flatly. I've already set aside the money. I'd like to be involved, she snapped. But since you've poisoned them against me, they won't even talk to me. They're just worried about tuition, I said coolly. Of course, I'll pay for it. I still love them, despite everything, she insisted. I scoffed. Right. Because you couldn't keep your legs closed. I lost them in the divorce. Brooke let out a surprised laugh. Stephanie shot her a glare. It was one mistake, Stephanie argued. One mistake. I repeated coldly. You destroyed our family. You should still be my husband, she pressed. I shook my head in disbelief. Delusional. Stephanie's face twisted with fury. You ruined everything, she shouted. Before I could respond, Brooke suddenly stepped forward and shoved Stephanie against the car. Stay away from my man, which, she growled, jabbing a finger in Stephanie's face. You tossed him aside, and I picked him up. I pulled Brooke back before things escalated further. Let it go, I murmured. She's not worth it. Stephanie kept yelling insults as we walked away, her voice growing distant. Brooke was still fuming. I'm sorry, she said breathlessly. I smirked. I have to admit, I like when women fight over me. Does wonders for my ego. She rolled her eyes, but we both laughed as we headed inside. Later that night, my phone rang. Mom. I answered, but the line cut off before she could say anything. Frowning, I called back. No answer. A sinking feeling hit my stomach. I dialed 911. The dispatcher confirmed paramedics were already on their way. Without thinking, I bolted from the store, yelling for Isabella to cover my shift. Brooke called after me, but I didn't stop to explain. I ran straight to my car and drove as fast as I could. By the time I reached my mom's house, the ambulance was already leaving. I followed it to the hospital, my heart pounding. But when I arrived at the ER, I heard the words I had dreaded. She passed before we got to her. I sat in the waiting room, numb, silent tears running down my face. The last time we spoke, she barely got a word out. What was she trying to say? Was she in pain? Did she know? I'd never get the answers. My phone rang. Brooke. Hey, I said quietly. My mom just died. Oh, Daniel. Brooke's voice was full of sorrow. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I whispered, my throat tight. Thanks. I don't think I'll be great company tonight. No, she said softly. I'm coming to you. You need me, Daniel. Let me come, please. I didn't want to be alone. Okay, I said. I'll be home soon. After hanging up, I got in my car. But instead of heading home, I drove to my old house. I had to tell my daughters whether they wanted to see me or not. I pulled up. Stephanie took a breath. Daniel, I'm really sorry about your mom. I let out a hollow laugh. Yeah? Do you regret her death? Or the fact that you turned her against me before she died? Stephanie's face fell. The last time we talked, she said she wouldn't speak to you again unless you backed out of the divorce. I closed my eyes, the pain crashing over me like a wave. She didn't even say she loved me before she hung up. Stephanie's voice trembled. I'm so sorry, Daniel, for everything. But sorry wouldn't bring my mother back. And it sure as hell wouldn't fix this. I heard Stephanie walk away, but before I could collect my thoughts, Madeline spoke. Dad, we're sorry too, she said softly. Please forgive us for being witches. I turned, surprised. Suddenly, both girls rushed into my arms, hugging me tightly. We cried together. Long, silent, grieving, and reconciling all at once. It's not my fault, girls, I said, my voice thick with emotion. Why can't you see that your mom is the reason we're not together? Olivia sniffled. We're sorry, Dad. We just thought, maybe you could forgive her. She hesitated. She still loves you. It's so obvious. I sighed, shaking my head. Not enough to stay faithful. I held them tighter, my heart aching. I'm sorry, girls. I really am. You'll be leaving for college soon, and I'm going to miss you so much. We've wasted enough time already. Madeline wiped her eyes. We get it, Daddy. We're not shutting you out anymore, Olivia added softly. Madeline looked up at me. Can we come with you? We haven't seen your new house yet. Maybe we could grab some pizza. A small smile broke through my sadness. Sure. Tell your mom, and let's go. When we pulled into my driveway, Brooke's car was already there. I had completely forgotten she was coming over. Looks like you're going to meet Brooke, I told the girls. Is she your girlfriend? They asked in unison, making me laugh. I mean, we've only just started dating, I admitted. Look at you blush, Madeline teased, grinning. Before I could stop them, they jumped out of the car and ran straight to Brooke's door, bombarding her with questions. Brooke opened the door, startled but amused as my daughters overwhelmed her with excitement. Girls, give her a break, I laughed. Let's go inside, and I'll introduce you properly. Olivia and Madeline both kissed my cheek before darting off after Brooke, their excitement contagious. As I walked over, Brooke gave me a wide-eyed look. Sorry about all that, I said sheepishly. She smiled warmly and kissed my cheek. Your daughters? Yep, I chuckled. Come on, let me introduce you properly. Brooke smoothed her hair. I must look a mess. I laughed. You look fine. They'll love you. Olivia, Madeline, I called. This is Brooke. They hugged her immediately. After a quick house tour, I sighed. I need to handle some things for Grandma's funeral. Brooke touched my arm. I'll order the pizzas while you show them around. Sounds perfect, I said. You're reading my mind. Oh, the girls chorused, giving each other knowing looks. I shook my head as Brooke smiled, settling in like she had always been part of my life. I decided to wait until morning to share the funeral details. I'd write an obituary for the paper and post the arrangements online after visiting the funeral home. After dinner, we spent hours reminiscing about my mom. Before long, I checked the time. It's already 10. Can we stay the night? Madeline asked hopefully. I don't have the guest room set up yet, I admitted. Okay, here's the deal, I said, trying to lighten the mood. I'll pick you up in the morning, and we'll go out for breakfast. But if you don't mind, I could really use your help sorting through Grandma's things. Of course, Dad. We'll help however we can. I nodded, grateful for their support. Brooke leaned closer. Want to go for a drive? Or do you need to head back to Mia? She's with my parents tonight, she said. Olivia's head snapped up. Who's Mia? Olivia asked, her curiosity piqued. Brooke chuckled. My 4-year-old daughter. Both girls squealed in excitement. Oh my God. We can't wait to meet her. Madeline exclaimed. Brooke laughed. I promised soon. Later that night, Brooke and I sat together on the couch. She sighed, smiling. Your girls are great. I exhaled, feeling lighter. I'm glad we're finally getting along. Brooke snuggled closer, and I wrapped my arm around her. The warmth, the quiet comfort of just being with someone, it made me realize how much I had missed this. Before I knew it, I had fallen asleep with her in my arms. The next morning, I woke up with a blanket draped over me, Brooke still curled up against my side. I kissed her forehead softly. Sorry I fell asleep on you. She stretched, murmuring sleepily, It's fine, baby. You've had a long, emotional day. I hesitated before asking, would you like to join me and the girls for breakfast? She smiled. Only if I can bring Mia. My parents have plans this morning. Of course. My daughters will love her. I sent Olivia and Madeline a text, asking them to meet us at IHOP. When we arrived, I held Mia's tiny hand as we walked in. The moment my daughters saw her, they rushed over. Within seconds, Mia was twirling in the air, giggling as she was smothered in hugs and kisses. I have to go to the bathroom. Mia squealed. We'll take her. The girls chorused, racing off with her. Brooke watched, laughing. I smirked. I don't know, Brooke. Do you think they'll get along? She playfully tapped my shoulder, then kissed my cheek. I hope it stays this way for years to come. Hearing her say that was unexpected. We had only been on one official date, and yet, she was already talking about the future. But as I sat there, watching Mia and my daughters bond instantly, I had to admit, I was starting to feel the same way. Over breakfast, Mia bombarded Olivia and Madeline with questions, surprising even them with her curiosity. She didn't just talk about herself, she genuinely wanted to know about their lives. Luckily, my daughters were pros at handling kids. Years of babysitting had given them all the tricks. They knew the best cartoons, games, and silly songs, and Mia ate it up. More than that, I noticed how easily they accepted Brooke. After making some calls, sorting through Mom's things, and handling the funeral arrangements, I finally had a moment to breathe. Brooke and Mia had left, giving us space to process everything. She thought it would be too overwhelming for Mia to be around during the emotional part. Spending time with my daughters in the evening, I said, "Time to go home. You have school tomorrow. Don't forget to tell your mom about the wake and funeral." We hugged one last time before they left. Watching them drive away, I looked up at the sky. "You didn't have to go, Mom," I whispered. "But thanks for bringing them back to me. I'll miss you." The wake was hard. I'd never been comfortable around bodies, but Mom looked peaceful. A part of me was relieved. She'd be with Dad again. She had planned everything herself, down to the casket. I was standing at the front when Stephanie and the girls arrived. They hugged me tightly, tears in their eyes. Stephanie stayed back, giving me space. After the prayer, she stepped forward and placed a photo in the casket, a picture of Mom, Stephanie, and our daughters when they were babies. I lost it for the first time that day. During the service, I noticed Stephanie standing alone at the back, wiping her eyes. The immediate family was supposed to sit in the front row. Madeline and Olivia sat to my right, Brooke to my left. But something felt off. Mom would have wanted Stephanie there too. I stood up and walked to the back. The room fell silent as I held out my hand. "Come here," I said gently. "You don't need to stay back there." Stephanie sobbed and hugged me. "Thank you," she whispered. We walked to the front together, and Uncle George gave up his seat for her. Brooke leaned over, kissed my cheek, and whispered, "You're a good man, Daniel." It felt strange, holding Brooke's hand with Stephanie so close. But it also felt right. After the service, I stood at the door, saying goodbye to the last guests. Stephanie approached as Brooke stood beside me. I wondered if there would be tension. Instead, Stephanie sighed. "Daniel, thank you for letting me be a part of today." I nodded. "She loved you like a daughter. It was the right thing to do." Stephanie's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you." Brooke's hand tightened on my waist, but she said nothing. Stephanie wiped her eyes, then turned to Brooke. "I'm glad you're here for him," she said sincerely. Stephanie smiled briefly, then left the room. I didn't know when I had forgiven her, but at some point I did. Life moved on. The girls went to college. We Skyped every week. Brooke and I were still together. I was close to proposing. Life is improving, and I hope the best is yet to come. If you enjoyed the story, please like and subscribe to the channel.